if you're brutally honest with your client, like, this is what's happening, this is what we're seeing. Yeah, this isn't that great. This is what we're going to do about it. That will help that relationship rather than making it up and saying, hey, we think these numbers look really good. When you don't think they look really good, you're going to lose that client.
We are back for another podcast episode, this time with my friend Kevin Roy. So Kevin Roy is the CEO and founder of Green Banana, based out of Boston, Massachusetts. So Kevin and I met at an event, like many of my closest friends in the SEO space and the agency space. We met at an SEO event, and then the friendship has grown from there. So I'm really excited for Kevin to share some of the stuff that he's done that's helped his agency be successful. So Kevin, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Super. Thanks for having me. And I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, man. We're thrilled to have you here as well. So Kevin, who is Kevin Roy, and like, how did this Green Banana agency come to exist?
I'm just a geek like probably the rest of us, right? So that's who I am. Long story short, I went to graduate school, ended up getting lucky and getting a job right before the .com boom, working for a company called eRoom Technology that got sold to EMC. I did their trade shows, and I was cubby mates with the web guy. And the web guy was like, hey, I have a rec to send someone to MIT to learn coding. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
So you got like
just luck.
Free ride to MIT?
Free to take classes. I didn't get like I had a master's degree. I didn't get it. I'm not an MIT graduate. I got to go and take coding classes there because our office was in Cambridge. So I did that, and I ended up helping him build the website for the company. He ended up leaving, and then I ended up being in charge of the web team there. And then one day I get a call from my boss, and she said, I'm leaving. The company's getting sold. You're next because EMC doesn't need any more web guys. And so I ended up, they were handing out severance packages. I took a severance package. I bought a computer because I didn't have one at home. And I went to 4 business owners that I knew back at home. And I said, I'm going to build you a website for free. If you like it, tell everybody you know, just don't tell them it was free. And 3 of them didn't pan out. I don't think I got referrals. One of them, I got tons of referrals. And then next thing you know, I'm building a site for the Salvation Army. And, I went to networking groups like crazy to try to drum up as much business as I could. And just, over time, it just slowly evolved. I kind of like to say that I was an overnight success in 5,447 nights.
A lot of people see it that way from the outside.
Yeah.
They don't realize all the reps that we've had along the way, right? It's
exactly.
like, you all of a sudden blew up, right? So this is like an Alex Hormozi strategy that you use essentially, where it's like, hey, I'm going to get better at this craft. I'm going to try it and help you out for free. And then I'm going to use this as a way to get referrals. I think that's a fantastic strategy. Yeah.
And when people say, how do you think you get all this business, or what do you think you're, how you're successful? It's, we do a great job here at Green Banana, and we provide a really great service, and I have an amazing team, but it's really about relationships and getting people to trust you. Because at the end of the day, people have no idea what we're talking about, right? Even I have some insanely smart clients. Some of the brightest people I've ever met are the clients that I work with. They have no idea what latent semantic indexing is, or what CTR is, or how to read a GA4 account. They don't get it. They don't care about getting it. They want to trust you, and you have to build trust in them. And that's slowly over time. You just get as many people to trust you as possible, and they refer you, and next thing you know, you're gone.
Is there a strategy, or is there something maybe that's like that you feel that you have that has really facilitated this trust building with these clients that you've landed?
So a couple of things. I think one thing that you touched on that I saw when I saw you speak, the bottom line is you just have to be truthful with them and do the best you can. So we've had clients in the past that things haven't worked out because we couldn't get the campaign to a Google Ads campaign to produce ROAS for us. And they still keep coming back because we're like, this is what we're doing for you. This is what we're trying. We're doing everything we can. People aren't buying, or, stuff like that. So being brutally honest with people about things. Even if they're not smart, they can tell if you're making stuff up. So just don't do it. Skip that part. In the beginning, sorry to interrupt. In the beginning, I read a book on NLP and went to my first sales meeting and was super nervous about it. Like, I'm going to bomb this sales meeting. And I started lightly mirroring the guy's behavior. And before I even went into the pitch, he's like, you know what? I just got a good feeling about you. Let's do this. It's like, oh, so then I made that part of my routine, and I've been doing it for so long that it's just innate.
So this mirroring is kind of copying the body language of the person that you're speaking to. How do you handle this when, like, for some of us that are on a phone call,
yeah,
right? What are some ways where we're not able to see the other person, but we can still have that I'm like you transfer of energy that you found that have been successful?
Tone, you can match tone a little bit, but it's more like almost everybody that I meet wants to talk about themselves, because they probably don't get to talk about themselves at home or at work, and they all have a story. And I'm thankfully genuinely interested. Like, my favorite thing in the world, if I could do nothing else, I would learn new stuff every day. So I get to learn things from the people that I talk to, and I'm genuinely interested in it. So those are the conversations that I have. I try to quickly get off like, hey, this is how great I am. I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, tell me about like where you are, how you're stuck a little. And then if they say something personal, you try to get onto that and like, tell me a little bit more about that. And then you end up having a fun story and a relationship.
I love it. This is exactly what I love to do. And sometimes this can be annoying to my wife, but I like to kind of pretend that I'm on a talk show, and I just want to understand who this person is and interview them. And sometimes this means that, like, I'm pulling back the life story of an Uber driver when she's got like a headache, but I'm like you. I'm so fascinated by people and like why they do what they do and who they are. And I think that that authenticity comes across really, really well. People can smell bullshit a mile away, right?
Yeah. And you can learn some really cool shit from just random people with a different perspective on things, or a different idea. Or like I get software feedback and ideas from people who have no business in SEO. I'm like, oh, I'll look at that. It turns out that it's pretty cool. So,
yeah. That's pretty awesome. I mean, I was going through a personal development thing in 2013, and through that course, I kind of had this epiphany that if I had this person's genetics and their experiences, I would be just like them. We're all trying to make the best decisions with the information we have available, and those decisions are shaped by our, like, the way we're wired and our experiences, that the things we've learned, right? So everybody has, in my opinion, everyone's got a story. And sometimes we think someone's boring, but maybe we just haven't asked the right questions to like get them onto something that they're passionate and excited about. And when you hit that, it's like, it's awesome to kind of watch that unravel, you know? So and it's just like a great people skill. If you have that human skill and then you start trying to build a relationship with somebody that you are really well positioned to help, it's natural that trust will come out of that. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with it. And if anyone's listening and they're like, well, I don't have that skill, you do. Like, you have to have been interested in something someone has talked about at some point. Just try to find that in the clients or the prospective clients that you're talking about. And it might be uncomfortable at first, but you'll probably start to enjoy it. Like, I thoroughly enjoy meeting and talking to most people. Right. So, yeah.
Good qualifier there.
There you go. Right.
So when did we actually start the agency?
So, like, I'm not kidding you, 4,477 nights, like 16 years ago.
16 years.
Yep. And I started just like I said, like networking. I got to a point where I couldn't handle the business. And I met a dude on Craigslist who was a developer, and I started sending him business, and I was sending him so much business. He said, we can't handle all the business that you're sending us. Here's another guy that we work with. And I met that guy. We hit it off really well. And I ended up going into partnership with him, which I strongly recommend against. I absolutely wouldn't be here at this trajectory if it weren't for him. But as we grew, he got super bored. He owned half the company and just was like, I don't feel like doing any more work. And there was nothing I can do about it. I eventually, that's a story for a whole nother podcast. I was able to buy him out through a series of events. So that's kind of how it started. But I wouldn't recommend ever doing a 50-50 partnership.
Yeah. It's one of those things like partnerships from the sideline. We kind of like watch somebody else and we're like, wow, this person has this really good skill and we need that skill in our company.
Yeah.
We don't realize like, how is this player all the time? Because you're essentially entering into like a marriage where you're going to have to deal with like, hey, they got a really good slap shot, but also like maybe they're drinking too much off the field or like whatever it is, they don't have the right motivation. Right. Like you're signing up for everything, but you're only seeing part of the picture when you make that decision a lot of times. So, I mean, I've heard stories like this more times often than not. It goes bad, especially if you don't know this person really, really well for a large enough sample size, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you do, that can be like, he had some personal issues that definitely affected his trajectory that caused him to just step back. You don't see that. You know, the issue is that 50-50 is always a stalemate.
Yeah. So we started the agency in 2008. We picked up so it's 2024, 16 years, right?
Oh yeah. I got way off track. Yeah. So I ended up buying him out, and when I bought him out, I ended up firing a fair amount of clients in the last year and a half. I really spent a lot of time looking at who the best clients that we have, the ones that stress my employees out the most, the ones that are the best to grow with, and the clients that we were just spending time losing money. And then I cut a lot of those, and that is kind of getting us to getting back to the revenue that I was at about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we could just kind of like step through like the time frames of where we had different. First of all, where are you at from a revenue standpoint today? Or
we're at about 600,000.
600,000 monthly recurring, right? So
yeah.
Okay, so that means that we're doing roughly like 12 months from now, we will have created 7.2 million, somewhere around there, right? In revenue. Yeah. And how long did it take you to get to seven figures?
It took me probably about 3 years to get to that.
3 years. Yeah. So there's like, it's harder at the beginning, right? We see people that are doing 600K a month, and maybe if we're at 10K a month, we're like, wow, that person's doing 60 times more than me. But it kind of comes in spurts where you get stuck at these spots. You get stuck at a traffic light for a little while.
Yeah.
And then the light turns green, and you can get on the highway and cruise for a while. And then there's another stoplight, right? And we get stuck again, right?
I'm in that right now. Like I hired a consultant to help me scale, to go through and redo all my SOPs, because I am stuck right now. So we are, even though we're growing, if I don't make some significant changes in the way that we're going to scale, I'll never break the $10 million barrier. I'm going to get stuck. I've been at about this revenue for the last 4 years, and I'm going to stay there until because we'll gain clients and lose clients because we're taking clients off the wrong reason or things like that. So I've been there before. And in the beginning, when you're starting an agency, I don't know if you did this, but I did this. You say yes to absolutely everything. And then you realize why you shouldn't have said yes to some of the things that you said yes to. And it took me at least 8 years to be able to start saying no to things. I think that is when you start to see some big changes, when you can start to say no to people, because the saying yes to everybody completely screws up your process, right? And then you're going to keep doing this. You're going to keep going up and down.
This is a hard message to communicate to people. It feels like one of these things where your dad tells you not to do something, and then you go and do it, and then you end up in the end, you're like, well, my dad was right? And one tactic that I try to get people to try to is like track the time that you spend on clients and calculate your hourly rate, and then review your clients and say, okay, this client, we made $250 an hour. This client, we made $4 an hour, right? What's the difference? And how do I find more, the ones that are in this like 250, whatever it is, this top category, what do they have in common? What do these ones have in common? So Kevin, did you guys niche down, or are you kind of like operating in several different verticals?
We're in several different verticals. And when the business coach that I hired, the first thing he said to me is that we're going to niche down. And then 2 months in, he called me and said, "You're the first agency I've ever worked with that I'm going to tell you not to niche down." And it's because we have a weird mix of people. Like I have aerospace, I have biotech, I have defense, I have plumbers, I have insulation guys, I have lawyers. It's all over the map. And some of my best clients, my two best clients, are out of home and insulation. Completely different. Yeah. So we haven't niched down, but I think that's going to hurt us. Not hurt us, but it's going to slow us down from scaling effectively, because we have to do different SOPs and different processes and different templates and things like that.
Yeah, you're constantly learning a different niche to be able to serve in the way that we need to serve them, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. I'm as you know, I think I'm a big believer in the niching down, and I've seen, I would say it's like maybe like 50-1, the ratio of successful agencies that I see, agencies that get beyond 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, when they're niche down versus not niche down. But it's not 50-0. It's just like, it's harder, right? And the saying that I have is like, I find it easier to be an inch wide and a mile deep than a mile wide and an inch deep, right? It's like,
I agree. Yeah.
But hey, we've got examples like Kevin that go against the grain and find a way to make it work. So Kevin, you being around in this industry for so long, and now kind of being able to look back, like 16 years ago, not only were you a younger agency owner, but you're just like, that's a lot. That's a big portion of your life, 16 years. What lessons have you learned along the way where like, hey, we can say these lessons, and if you had to go back and tell Kevin of 2008 something, what would it be to make your life easier?
I think the first thing I would tell myself is that it's going to work out, right? So I cannot tell you how many nights that I've spent not sleeping or stressed out about the idea of something happened that has still never happened. Like all of these scenarios that I create that this is going to happen are all in my head. And as long as you're, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back is still forward. So that would be the first thing that I would say, is that don't look at the worst case scenario, because it just, as long as you're moving forward, it's not going to happen. And I've been through a lot of stuff. I've had employees steal millions of dollars worth of business from us, and it still worked out. So I would do that.
There too. It stings.
It stings. But it's probably the best thing it's oddly probably the best thing that ever happened. The other thing too would be to trust your gut, especially in this industry. So if you are pitching someone and they're spending an inordinate amount of time thinking that you're making stuff up or thinking that you're lying to them, don't take them on as a client, because there's nothing you're going to be able to do through that relationship. They've been burned too many times before, and you think you're going to come through being the white knight, and the day you engage, the red flags are going to go up because they still think that you're going to screw them over. So
you've already got kind of like an idea how this is going to play out before we've even started.
Because in what we do, people don't understand what we do. Then there has to be a little bit of a leap of faith. Everyone knows that marketing campaigns don't hockey stick, right? They take time to grow and to mature and to evolve. And if you have a client that's panicking week 1, it's just bad. So if they're panicking in the close, let them go.
Right. The wisdom that you're sharing, that there's a theme of like discipline, of saying no to people and kind of like turning these people away and realizing how costly it can be to accept a little bit more revenue in the short term, right? Both from a financial standpoint and our just like our sanity.
Yeah. And it's super hard to do. It is still to this day really hard. I just turned someone down last week that could have been a good fit, but there was something he just kept asking, like doubting questions. And I'm just like, you know what? This is a good fit. Sorry.
Yeah. It's always easier to say no to someone before things have started. That like I fired a client a few months ago and he had been with us for a couple years and he had been annoying for a couple years. And like he said something and I was like, all right, that was the last straw. It's over.
Yeah.
Cut him. I let the team know. The whole team was happy. Like, and I felt relieved and we just didn't have to deal with that headache anymore. And you always like, why did that take me so long to do that? Right. We're turning down revenue, but it's like at some point the ratio is going to be out of whack where it's like the headache versus the money. And like, as money gets like a little bit more, then like we're less tolerant of headaches. But yeah, it is a hard lesson to learn. And I don't know by hearing the podcast, I don't know if that's actionable. If somebody's on that threshold and they hear it, this is probably the right time for the right message. But like to turn it down from the beginning, at the beginning of an agency, some of these lessons you just have to learn around.
Yeah, you'll figure it out, Neron. You won't do it. Because honestly, back then I wouldn't have done it. I would have taken this guy on and the 17th time I'm going over his Google Analytics and his conversion tracking, knowing it's 100% right and having him just thinking I somehow made up that report. Like it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Let's talk about the offer that you guys have at Green Banana. And I know it's probably a bit all over the place because you have clients in so many different verticals, but like when you're going through, when you're bringing on a new client, do you have a collection of packages that you're offering them?
So, yeah, we do, but a lot of it is concierge. So a lot of times clients will come to us with, here's something that we want to do. Like we want to hire you to run our Facebook campaign. And I'll look at their product line and say, Facebook's not going to work for you, Google Ads. We have SEO packages and we have paid media packages, but we don't have like the typical like A, B, and C package. We now have budget limits. Like you have to spend a certain amount on paid media for us to work with you and a certain amount on SEO. We have a pretty unique SEO offering, which is pay for performance. If we get people on page one, they pay. If we don't get them on page one, they don't pay. Very careful at like, I'll know if we can rank someone. And we don't do any super secret black hat stuff. You know, if I showed you my SEO process, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's everything that every good SEO agency should be doing. So we do that for people. But with that comes 12-month commitment. If we get you ranked, you pay us. If we don't get you ranked, you don't pay us. If you want to switch your keywords on month 6, too bad. Can't, right? Because we're working on ranking these and these are the ones you want to rank. If you want to be talking to us every week, we're going to do the exact same thing with you, but you're going to be paying us from day one, whether we rank you or not. Right? So that's more of a consultative process. The larger companies like those better because they want to talk to us all the time. So our SEO methodology is the same, but we're talking to the clients more frequently. And that's a lot more expensive. That is becoming a lot more popular now when clients are looking, they'll come to us and say, we want to do pay for performance, but want to meet with you once a week. Like, no, can't do that. Can't. If you want to meet with us once a week, I need to have a team allocated to that. And, you know,
right.
This is what we're going to do.
So you're building the package prices. It seems like it's directly in alignment with the resources that you're going to have to allocate. A weekly meeting, more resources allocated. We've got to make sure that that's like net positive from the beginning, right?
Yeah. But one thing that I'm starting now is I'm asking revenue qualifiers before we even take clients on. One of the things that I found particularly with our pay for performance model is you'll have like a roofer that's just starting out and you get them on page one in, 3 months for a bunch of keyword phrases, but it's not bringing them in 2,000 visits a month, right? It's bringing them in a couple hundred visits a month in the beginning, and he's not making any money. He calls and tries to cancel. You're like, dude, we got 8 more months together. You can't cancel it. So that happens. Like startups will call, get in the pay for performance program. We start to get them ranked. They're not making enough revenue. They panic and try to pull And that hurts us because we lose money on it.
Right. So I want to unpack this like pay per performance part, because I think a lot of out there people, they may think that that seems like a scary proposition. Mm-hmm. What if I rank them and then they just like blow me off? And then
that sucks. So the first thing to anybody that thinks that this is like, there's a lot of people that think pay for performance is a scam. It's not. We're doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. If you rank us, you pay. If you don't rank us, you don't pay. We don't rank every single keyword. But the client picks the keyword phrases. If we rank them, they're paying us. If they're ranking in the top 10, they're not ranking, they don't pay us. But the reason that we can get away with this is because I've been doing it for 16 years. So I have lots of people that are on page one that have not canceled, that are still working with us. So I can afford to have some clients bail, but it's bad. It's not, you lose money on it, but I can afford that because I have lots of recurring revenue. You don't make money on those for the first, it typically break even is 4 to 5 months.
They're not paying anything at all until they.
Oh, I used to not have them pay anything at all. That was a huge mistake because people forget they were doing business with us.
Yeah.
So now we make them pay like a pretty good sized setup fee that if we don't get them ranked within the term of the contract, we give them that money back. And that's just to make sure they're in the game. People that don't have $1,000, I don't want to work with them anyways.
Is that the setup fee?
Yeah, that's a setup fee. That's refundable if you don't get someone ranked within the 12 months of the contract. Literally, the only thing it is it's mental. It's like this person's not going to forget they engaged with us.
Right. They've got to have some skin in the game too.
Yeah. And it's all written in the contract that if we don't get you ranked, we have to give you that money back. And
right.
It's 16 years I've done that twice. If someone called me today and said, I want to be on page one for dating, good luck. Right. I can get you on page one. If Google Ads can do that for you.
So you're kind of like selecting the spots where you can hit a home run here.
Yeah, we're selecting the spots that we know we can get people, ranked, like DUI attorney, New York City, right? I know that's going to take me 11 months to get that ranked. If so I will make money back on that. I'll tell them the truth. I'm like, hey, it's going to take me almost a year to get you ranked for this. I can't put you on the pay performance program if you're not interested. Go find somebody else.
Right. Can we just like define ranking a little bit? Because I know this can be really subjective, right? If we're talking organic, does this mean like, hey, on the first page in the top 10 and then there's maps?
Yeah. So you have to be in the top 10. We include Google Map rankings because most people want to be on the Google Maps. So we include that if you're in the top 10 and you're on page one in the top 10 or you're in the map 3-pack, that's a page one ranking.
Got it. And how long have you been doing this pay for performance plan? Is this go back years or is this something?
Yeah, I've been doing it for 13 years.
Wow.
So here's how it started. I was in I had a really great long-term client. And they asked us to do SEO for them. So we started to do SEO, time and materials, writing content, doing all the things you're supposed to do to get someone ranked. And I spent probably 8-9 hours writing a report set at board meeting to go into. And I printed everything out. I remember I stayed up almost all night, came in the next day with my fancy booklets and handed them out to everybody on the board, sat down at the table, and not one person opened that document. And the CEO looked at me and said, "What are we paying you for again?" I'm like, "You kidding me?" Right? I'm like, "How about this? I know what keywords you want to get ranked for. If I get you on page one, pay me. If I don't get you on page one, don't pay me, but I'm never writing this report again." And they're like, "Okay, done." And I came back to my business partner at the time and I said, "I think we're screwed, or this is a really good idea." All right, so let's figure it out. And then it just happened. So it works really well in some situations. It works really well for small businesses. Bigger businesses want more input, so you don't do that. It doesn't work well for people that resell our services because they get greedy and they start charging their clients month one. Month two, they're still not ranking. They call us and they say, "Hey, we need a report of everything we did." And then I'm like, "Did you happen to charge them, and they're not ranking. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, your report is you have no rankings yet. So I'm going to go back and tell them that.
It's
yeah.
What's great about this strategy that you have here is it kind of, it's like a risk reversal on the scariest part for a business. And if you have the chops to back it up, you know that this piece is coming. What I see a lot of people do, especially those like coming from like the lead generation background where you own the sites and then you sell the leads, and moving into like client services, a lot of times we run into, like, let's say it's a roofer and they want leads today. SEO is not going to bring you leads today. Like it's just not. So if you're trying to sell a long-term solution to somebody who has short-term problems, that's going to be an issue, right? And that's where, like, hey, we can bring in ads and direct mail and stuff like this, but you kind of like took a completely different angle with this. And I know that you still offer some of these services for the right customers.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, you have no risk around this. You only have to pay if we start to deliver, and then you can use the money from what we're delivering to pay for our services, and you're going to be positive ROI. It's almost like a guarantee. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, there is for them, there's the, they don't have to worry about understanding how to decipher a report, how to understand about content or analytics. They just Google themselves and they see their ranking.
Right. Kevin, how is it? What has been the best strategy for you? You've got $600K a month coming in. How many clients is that? Do you know?
About 150.
150. Okay. So we're averaging roughly about.
I have some clients that spend a fortune in Google Ads.
Okay.
So we have a good amount of clients that are spending, $20, $30, $50,000 a month.
Right. Right. What has been the best strategy to attract these clients for you? Is it referrals, or you've kind of like built some pipelines to bring people in?
So a lot of it's referrals, networking, public speaking. So I used to do a ton of it before COVID. I don't do it much now, but I'm trying to get back into it. I'll just go speak at a conference and just tell everybody what I do and how I do it. And then people look at me and say, that kid didn't speak very well, but he looks like a guy I've seen at the supermarket. So I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him to help us out because he looks familiar to me. So that we definitely get stuff from our site, but a lot of those are odd. Some of them are good, but the referrals close super, super well. We do work with other agencies, like branding agencies. So there's a fair amount of like super smart moms that used to have killer marketing jobs that didn't want to do it anymore, and they'll take on 2 or 3 clients because they're at home. They want to have flexibility.
So they're almost like white labeling your services.
Yeah. It depends on their comfort level. We'll white label. We have a white label solution. So we'll do that for them. Or we'll just work alongside them. I'll say this is Green Banana.
Right. With the conferences that you're speaking at, can you give me a couple examples of these? Like, what types of conference? Are you going to like a trade show for a niche, or is this like, like a Rotary Club? Or
it's weird. It's like, so I'm terrible at outreach. I don't have a plan. I need to develop a plan, but it's people that just call me. I don't know, like someone will find me and say, hey, I'm doing this thing in Boston and we need an SEO person. Will you come in and talk about SEO? So they're all people that have reached out to me to ask, but they're not like, it's a mess. There's no process behind it. I've just been saying yes to
right.
Branding companies in Boston that have asked me to do things, or, stuff. I did some speaking in Miami at a, trade show that someone asked me to speak at.
Yeah. But I mean, 16 years in the same industry and working with these, if you do a good job and your name is out there, you've got like personal branding that is going to be coming into play. There's just so many interactions that have happened over 16 years. This is awesome. If you were to look at the other agencies, and I know you and we've been at a couple different events together, and you've heard all sorts of conversations. And I know, like, being polite, you're not always going to speak your mind when you see like, well, this person's making a mistake here. What are some of the common things that you think are keeping people, below where their potential could take them that you witness? What are some of these mistakes that you think happen the most?
That's a good question. I think people I love going to those shows. There's a lot of shiny things that I don't think are going to work, and a lot of times they don't work. So I think people will get caught up in some of that. I think also they may try to do too many things for their clients, and then they're going to spend so much time either learning things or doing a million. Just like your analogy about the depths. I can't remember exactly what you said, but they'll spread themselves too thin, and they'll not do a great job. And I think people forget how important building relationships and building trust are between their clients. And then finally, I really think it's consistency. So it's kind of like there's this older dude at the gym that I go to every morning. He's like 65 years old and jacked. He's not jacked because he's doing something special. He's jacked because he goes there every single day. He takes maybe 2 days off. He eats right consistently, and he goes to the gym for an hour a day. Right. So I've been consistently doing this for 16 years. This, if it's a terrible day or if it's a good day, I just consistently do it. And I think that's part of it too. Right. So even though I'm an internet geek like everybody else that's probably listening to this, so I get excited and I try out the new shiny things, but you got to stick to what's consistently working and just work on that. And then things will compound over time.
Right. This is the mistake that I made when I first started. My first couple of years, I got to $4,000 after 2 years. And, that wasn't a great experience, but I was trying this a little bit. I actually got to $4,000 after a few months. And then I stayed there for 2 years because I started trying other things. There were things that had worked that had got me there. And instead of doubling down on those, let me try Facebook ads. Let me try this. It's just like, at some point, I'm like, why don't I just do this stuff again and again? And it's almost like sometimes we're too smart for ourselves, and the boring stuff that works.
Yeah.
We can just do more of that. Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan because he would go and shoot a ball from behind the hoop, but he would make the jump shot all the time. Right. And there was a lot of flash to what he did, but the fundamentals on the best players in the game, the fundamentals on the best agencies are locked down. It's we get this piece really solid, and at that point we can add something else into it. And we get that really solid. It's not like do this. I've got to learn 50 different things. If you do one thing really, really well, that'll probably set you apart from 99% of other agencies out there.
Really glad you said the boring part, because there's a lot of this stuff that's tedious and boring. Like when I have a certain way that I write a proposal and do a competitive audit for people, and it's so boring. But I do it and it works. So I just keep doing it and it just keeps working. So it's that. It's just like you said, like you were doing something that worked, and then you saw something shiny and you chased it around for a little bit and then came back to the thing that works.
So Kevin, how many people are in your agency?
17.
17. And it sounds like from other parts of the conversation that you've found some really talented people. Do you have any, have you had any unlocks through the journey that have helped you identify great talent?
So I think about this a lot. I am super lucky. I have a great team. I think the way that I manage is I'm a team member. I'm not the boss. And I really, really, really believe that. And everyone on my team helps everybody else out. So we're not trying not to be super competitive. There is not a preference, gender, shape, skin tone commonality. It is literally, the commonality is they give a shit. I know it sounds weird, but they actually like what they're doing, and they care about what they're doing, and they get excited about when they're seeing wins in the work that they're doing. That's the commonality. And I have no idea how to find it. I know that you can ask certain interview questions, but literally the people in my company are like, there is not one common thread among.
How did you find these people? Looking back on some of the.
So a lot, it's literally just like Indeed interviews, but I have the team. So I don't do interviews anymore. I'll do the last one, but I make sure that the team interviews people. and make sure that they, because they're going to be working with them a lot. And then I'll do that annoying question where I'll say, Patrick, so the last job that you had, what would your boss say about you? And can I have her phone number? And see if you squirrel around on it, then I don't want you. So that's like my only super secret trick.
Once they come on the team, it sounds like you guys have a great team and the goal is like client success. But how are you, is there a way that you're kind of measuring productivity from the people from your team to make sure that everyone's doing what they should?
So we use Harvest to measure time, but a lot of it really comes from, so we used to do just by how the campaigns were going and listen if clients are complaining, which is a terrible way to do it. Now we use Read AI for everything. And so we're recording, and I have a customer success manager, and his job is to listen to some of these recordings periodically to make sure that the clients are happy and successful. The team, a new person will shadow people for quite a bit to learn how we're doing what they're doing. So it's a little bit loose, but we're just like monitoring how they're working. We're having more than one person sit on a client call. So they're, there's a junior person and a senior person that's always on that until we're ready to like set them free. So there's a lot of that. And then, like I said before, people are not trying to set other people up here to fail, because they know that if they build a strong player, there's less work than they have to do. Right. So there's kind of like that common thread, and people that aren't great, it brings the rest of the team down, and they all see it.
Right. Do you incentivize the team based on the success of the company? How does that work?
I do profit sharing. So we pay well, and we do profit sharing.
Can you give us a little more mechanics on how the profit sharing works? Like, this percentage goes if X is done, just like a couple.
Yeah. So what I did was I hit a benchmark. I'm like, so benchmark and accelerators. So if we hit 6.5 million this year, then everything over that, it's a higher percentage. If we start to dip, then there's no profit sharing, right? So I put things in like that. So that when they call me and say, hey, Kev, this client's really, really annoying, we should get rid of him. I'm like, all right, it's going to take us below margin. I know we can get back up, but is this worth it? Right. So, so we do that. So it's literally like a sliding scale that I built.
How much do you feel the impact from this on them on like a daily, weekly, monthly basis from this fact that the success of the company is tied to their compensation?
I don't think it's as much as I thought it would be when I started. I give a lot of autonomy in the campaigns that the employees run, so they feel like there's ownership, because you don't want to tell someone that's really smart and really motivated, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to do it, and it's my way or the highway. I don't care if you think we should do something else. It's a crappy way to feel about your job, and you're certainly not empowering them. So I think that is actually more than the compensation.
Right. This like letting them have ownership of a part of the company in a sense where you own the results, you own the process.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, I think one of the things that I'm trying to foster right now is like, I had, an employee tell me something about a month ago that's like, hey, I tried this and it worked with a client. I'm super excited about it. I was like, and I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, did you tell everybody else? Right. So we need to share that. Like, so if you see a win, share it. If you see a failure, share it. So that everyone else can benefit from that idea that we had. But I think when they feel like, hey, if you have an idea to make this campaign work, as long as it's not charging the client more without their permission, right? then you can, just things that common sense, then go ahead and do it and let me know how it went.
Awesome. Yeah. Kevin, how are you guys with AI coming on so strong and playing roles? How are you guys leveraging it within Green Banana?
So the first thing I said when AI came out was so I'm the guy at the company that annoys the crap out of all my employees, because I'm like, I found this shiny new thing. I think we should really try it. And they'll come back and say, come on again. So when AI came out, I said, if you don't embrace this, it's going to take someone in here, if not all of us, are going to lose our jobs. So it's really important that you use chat, at least chat to the best of your ability. So I don't think they all use it, but my SEO team uses it to, we use chat, we use ZenWriter to write copy, but we don't just take it and dump it in. But I think, you know this. If I said, Patrick, go write 4,000 words on your own without ChatGPT and have it done by tomorrow, you can't physically do it. It's impossible. You could do it right now and have it done by the end of the call, and then you can edit it and have that done in 6 to 8 hours. And it's going to be pretty good. So we do that all the time. I use chat to do computation. So I'm like a data nerd. So I study a lot of analytic trends in Google Analytics for clients, and I'll throw up stuff in chat and say, help me find some trends. My favorite hack lately in chat was I'm on the board of directors of the Y, and they're super old school. And they gave me the end of the summer, they gave me this like 40-page, like printed out PowerPoint presentation with all the dates of the committee meetings that I have to go to. And I'm like, oh, I got to go through this whole thing on my calendar, write it down. So I scanned it. I put it in my computer. I uploaded it to chat, and I said, go through all the meetings that Kevin Roy is in. And can you create an iCal clickable icon that I can click and have it populate my calendar? And I did it. So I do like funky stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this. I know we're getting towards like the end of our time here, but you hit on something that I think is not everybody's taking advantage of from my perception of the data nerd. Let's talk about Google Analytics and how you use it, and like, what are you looking for? And then you mentioned that you're taking this data and you're kind of feeding it into ChatGPT for it to do analysis. Can you start off with like high level stuff? When you bring on a new client, what are you guys doing for Google Analytics? What's important to get set up in the beginning?
So the most important thing to set up in Google Analytics, well, now you have to set up data studios, which is annoying. So if for what it's worth, I hate GA4. I'm angry that it ever came out, but we identify the most important things for the client. And it's typically phone calls, form fills, unless it's a store, right? Then it's a purchase. So you have to create events or create conversion events inside Google Analytics, because there is so much data inside Google Analytics. And I always tell clients that you can get lost in the data, but it beautifully comes together if you can tie it to a conversion or a KPI. So think about, does traffic matter? Right? Traffic doesn't matter if no one's converting, right? Traffic from Istanbul is not going to help you close a roofing contract, right? But rather than going through that, you look at how many leads did I get? Where do the leads come from? That, like, all of Google Analytics literally comes together beautifully when you tie it to a conversion. If you don't have it to a conversion, you're going to be chasing your tail, in my opinion. Right. So that's the first thing you have to do. So
the conversion events around the phone call form submission, do you guys create lead magnets for your clients to try to capture more of the top of funnel, like the people that are maybe not ready to buy, they're doing research on a roof? Hey, here's download this so we can stay top of mind with the follow-up sequence. Is that a third event, or?
That's something this is something that we have to do, because we have our clients, we make our clients do it, and that's something that's not good. So we have to do lead magnets, and we have to do follow through. It's just we've been a little slow on getting that automated, but it's the clients that we have that are our best clients already have something.
Those are kind of like the three first events that you're doing. It's the forms, the calls, and then a lead magnet download, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so we set this up, and they don't have, typically they're not going to have this stuff from previous time periods. So it's like, we're starting, we've got to create a baseline now. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, almost everybody that has a website has Google Analytics, right?
But they may not have the events part of it set up.
No, they don't have the events part of it set up, but you can still backtrack and see, like, it's sloppy, but you can go in and see how many people click the thank you page, or
I see,
junk like that. But it's typically a baseline from there, but you can still go back and look at historic traffic and get some trends and ideas.
Right. So now that you have the tracking in place, you guys start to gather data for a little while, and it sounds like you're constantly monitoring these conversion rates? Are you guys split testing, trying to improve these?
Yeah, my paid media team. So we do quite a bit in paid media. It's probably half of our revenue. And my paid media team is consistently looking and tweaking accounts and looking at conversions and presenting it to the clients on we meet with clients that have a certain amount of spend every week, if not twice a week, and going over things once a week. And I tell clients this, and when I'm doing a pitch to someone, I'll tell them honestly, like every client that we have that has withered off and died, or it's just petered out, they don't show up for meetings. The clients that show up for meetings, if you look at all across, like any type of client we have, the one constant is the clients show up for meetings and they participate. Because one of the things that I think is really important is that a really good lead and a crappy lead looks exactly the same in the Olympics, right? And getting that feedback from the client is critical to capitalizing on getting them the most out of their marketing budget. And I'll give you an example. We have a classic car automotive finance client. They bring on a new marketing guy, and I say the same pitch to them, like, hey, this is going to work if you participate. If you don't work, it's like you're going to end up getting sick of reading the Green Banana reports. And I said, get one of your sales guys on a call. So he brings the sales guy on a call, and where we found that there was a certain make and model of a car that was having a super high conversion rate. So people were applying for loans looking for this car. And we're like, so my analyst was going over like, hey, we're seeing all this. Conversion rate's really high. The cost per acquisition is really low. We're super excited about it. The sales guy gets on. He's like, no, none of those people have a qualifying credit score. We wouldn't know that, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing all the leads come in. They all had 400 credit scores.
Yeah.
Right. So that information is so important. We're driving leads to the wrong thing, thinking we're hitting the cover off the ball, and they can't close any of the deals.
Right. How else will you get that if you don't have this communication with the client, right? There's no way.
Absolutely have to. And that's building a relationship too. It's like, so that like we're looking golden, we're sending the guy golden reports. And then we're like, hey, you know what we're doing for you is hurting you. We should shift this. That was 2 years ago. I had that call.
So with that being in paid media, we're kind of like changing the keyword that we're targeting, maybe possibly putting that as a negative keyword, like, hey, that car equals no conversion. So let's block that one. So we spend our double down on the ones that are working. Is that kind of the direction?
Yeah. I mean, you know this though, like when people start, especially if they're from another agency, I'll say to them, like, if you're really, really, really good at this job, you can sell reporting for 2 to 3 months, but you can sell leads forever. Which ones do you want to do?
Right.
So that's the most important thing, not the bullshit click through reports. And that stuff matters to us. Our clients don't care about that.
They care about more money in their pocket, right? Having somebody else that they can delegate this stuff to, that hey, I know this is going to work. They've got this. Yeah. Get more of my time back, right?
Yeah. And if you're not afraid to, and I can't state this enough, it's really, really hard to get a campaign to work very well. So there's almost always going to be a bump in the road. Even if you're running an SEO campaign takes a while to ramp. A paid campaign takes usually 3 months to start getting conversions, to start crushing it. If you're brutally honest with your client, like, this is what's happening, this is what we're seeing. Yeah, this isn't that great. This is what we're going to do about it. That will help that relationship, rather than making it up and saying, hey, we think these numbers look really good. When you don't think they look really good, you're going to lose that client. But you have a chance to keep the client if you're like, hey, this isn't looking good. Here's what I'm going to do about it.
Right. Have you run into this situation where you're sending like a lot of leads and the client just doesn't really follow up? Right. How do you guys handle that?
Well, tracking, right? But that's the hard part. If you're tracking leads and you're tracking phone calls, that's super important. It's a total bummer that as an agency that does marketing, you have to get involved in the sales process sometimes, because that's a whole other skill set. And it's kind of really not your problem, but sometimes it is. I had an auto dealership years ago. This is pre-COVID. All these dudes in suits showed up at my office ready to fire me. They came in because the campaign wasn't working. And I'm thinking it's working because I'm seeing the leads and phone calls and conversions. So they all sat down at the conference room table with their puffy chests and angry faces. And I pulled up the report and they're like, Kev, the stuff you're doing is not working. We're not getting any leads. I'm like, you're not getting any leads, Paul? And I clicked phone call, number 1, goes to voicemail, 11 o'clock. 11:14, click phone call, goes to voicemail. Like it was like 6 calls in a row. I kept clicking, no one's answering the phone. And it's the right number. It's got their like reception number. And I look over, I'm like, you're not getting any leads, or you're just not answering the phone. That was the sales guy's last day at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's grandiose. That doesn't usually happen, but that's stuff you got to do. So
yeah,
back up your stuff.
It happens a lot especially if you're dealing with like home service businesses that are maybe below $1 million in revenue, maybe below 500,000, somewhere in that like 500,000 to 1.5 million. It seems that they start to have an admin person in play. They start to get like their follow-up processes in place. And if they don't do that, then they don't get to those numbers, right? It's just like, it's one or the other. You can't get there if you're not taking advantage of the leads that come in. You know, I was talking to one of my most successful clients, and I'm asking him how things are working. And they when a lead comes in, they try to call these people 8 times. 8 times. I've had conversations with clients where it's like, well, I called and left a voicemail and I didn't hear back from them. So that was not a good lead. It's like, maybe they're just a human being that's busy and they didn't hear your voicemail. They'd be able to check their voicemail, you know, like.
Yeah, they got a doctor's appointment. There's something stressing out. Their car just broke down. Their kid pick their kid up at school.
Yeah. Right? Life is in the way when you happen to call and they don't call you back. Right. So it is tough, but it is like, this is an opportunity as somebody owning a marketing agency for us to differentiate ourselves. So can we solve more and more bleeding problems? Can we like, what's the next problem? What do they really need? So we've just recently introduced this as a part of our offer, right? Where we're having like an admin assistant where it's like, we know that the value of our leads are going to be determined by the value that they get from them. And if we can help them book a call and get on their schedule, well, it's like our leads just became a lead that wasn't going to be followed up with became an appointment, right? And you do this again and again. It's like, we're helping the companies be more successful with maybe an area that they're not great at. A lot of them are like technicians. So they're like, I'm great at installing the roof, but that doesn't mean I know how to go and like hire and find people, you know?
Yeah.
So,
especially those ones that in home services, you know, we, one of the clients we have is a franchise. So we manage like 16 or 17 franchises. They all do the exact same thing. They're all in different, states, and the campaigns are identical. The lead capture is identical. And it's funny when we do usually bi-weekly meetings with all at the same time. And there's a core group of people that show up to every single meeting. You know, they're answering all the calls. You know, they're calling people right away. They're just ballers. And surprisingly, their franchises do better than the rest of them. So the ones that cancel and fire us are the ones that don't show up for the meetings, that probably aren't answering the phones. They're getting the exact same amount of leads as the other ones. Those people. So the point is that you may get a client that is just not a baller, and you kind of got to help them figure it out, or her figure it out. And the ones that are doing everything they can with the leads, even if they're getting the exact same amount, are miraculously doing better.
This is the kind of like the next level in us as like leading our clients to success, is like being able to have the skill set, the communication skill set to be like, hey, we've got 14 other franchises. Here's what they're doing, and here's what you're not. And like, you guys are going to continue to have this problem no matter what marketing agency you have, assuming that they're providing leads like we are, until you solve this like internal problem. Like, you guys, it's going to stop you from being successful. How long are you willing to deal with the pain before you like hit this piece out of the park, right? Which some people aren't ready to hear that message, especially from a marketing agency. Or that's not what I argue for, you know? Yeah,
but you're doing the right thing by helping that, because that's what's going to prolong your relationship with the client.
Right. And if I think you're like me in the sense that like, well, maybe we start this business because we want to provide for our family. And then at some point it's like, I want to have an impact. I want to help these companies get to a better place. I want to be a part of their success story. Right. So then it's like, it's easy. if that's how you define things, it's easy when you see a problem to be the solution, even if that's not what they signed up for, you know?
Yeah. And you're right. It is super, like, it's really exciting when a campaign does really well. And when the client calls you and it's like, hey, you know, the last marketing agency we were with, we weren't making any money. And now we're, you know, hitting the cover off the ball. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Kevin, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with people that are running these marketing agencies? Maybe they're just getting started, or maybe they've been in the game for many years. Is there any final things that you want to share with these people before we jump off here?
Every single agency and every single person has probably had some really difficult times. I've gone through some crazy hard times. And one thing that's always stuck with me is, if you're going through hell, keep going, you know, and it ends up. So if you're in a crappy spot right now and you're hearing this, I promise you, if you just keep going and just stay consistent, it's going to end up working out. So that, you know, that has been just keep moving has been the reason that I'm able to get asked to be on a podcast.
When they look at the correlations of success, one of them, it's not always intelligence. It's not, hey, this person's like better looking or was born into this better family. It's grit. A lot of times that's the keep going when times are tough. It's just like, how much grit do you have? Some people, they already know that the end is already decided for them, where it's like, I'm going to be successful with this. I'm going to make this work. It's just a question of when. So for those people, there's no quit. They've already decided the end. They don't understand what's between the beginning and the end, but they know where they're going to end up. And it's just like, they're going to be relentless to get there. And there's just that grit of like, I'm going to fight through and other people, hey, when I like, this is too tough, let me go over here. Here's the thing though, is like, regardless of what you pick to do, you're going to run up against that point at some point in the business on your way. If you want to be great at anything, you're going to run into that at some point.
Absolutely.
And how many different things are you going to try before you realize that, like, hey, maybe it's me. Maybe I've got to push through the hard times and I've got to find a way to have that grit. Because otherwise, like, I've been through it too. I've had really tough times. Like, you know, we've got 3 companies, and each one of these companies, it's like you get punched in the mouth. If you expect that, it doesn't hurt as much. It's not as shocking, right? It's just like, okay, that was it.
And don't give it any energy. So one of my favorite, like, personal stories is, I used to go surfing with these guys, you know, before I got too busy, and they had like soft surfboard bags and they put them on the plane. And I'm like, don't your surfboards ever get screwed up? And they looked at me with this like, oh, we don't even think about that. That doesn't come into our brain. And miraculously, their surfboards never got dented or banged up on a plane when everyone's bag gets dismantled. And I keep thinking, like, they didn't give any energy to a negative event, and it just never happened. And so it's really hard to do, but I swear, like all those crappy things that you're thinking are going to happen, don't give it any energy.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Kevin, thank you so much. This was a fantastic episode. Tons of great takeaways, things that I learned that I want to put in my agency as well. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.